Welcome to the Jaguar Podcast, a show where we discuss all things related to Duval County's finest NFL football team, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Move 42, set, fight!
Duval, baby! Hey, everybody, it's Andrew, and welcome to episode 94 of the Jaguar Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be doing a overview of the Jacksonville Jaguars NFL draft class. But before we start, always want to give a quick kudos and shout out to all of our healthcare workers, our doctors, nurses, police officers, firefighters, and servicemen and women. Thank you so much for helping us during this coronavirus crisis. We really appreciate it. Thank you, and stay safe. All right, so let's jump into it. The Jacksonville Jaguars NFL 2020 draft class. Wow, a lot of thoughts on this. I will be going into a lot more depth than my previous episode on the players. I kind of broke it up that way because, there's a lot to say about these players. I kind of gave myself some time to dig in and do the homework and look at the highlights and stats. So, forgive me. My apologies for this episode taking so long, but I just wanted to take the time to do my analysis. So let's start off with the first pick by Jacksonville in round one. Pick number 9, cornerback C.J. Henderson from Florida. This was a great pick. I mean, I think everybody knew this one, was coming with the departure of Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Bouye. So, I definitely think there was a void to fill and that this was, a good pick. Not the pick I would have, really, gone for. I would have been a little bit more aggressive, probably tried to trade Ngakoue and maybe, Cam Robinson and Marquise Lee for, pick number 3. Because I would have wanted to go for Jeff Okudah from Ohio State. I just feel like he's a better open field tackler, and that's one of the weaknesses for, C.J. Henderson. He's kind of a weak, open field tackler. I've seen that, when I watched the highlights, they were playing, Florida was playing LSU, and he kind of whiffed on a few tackles that were like, definitely, not hard tackles to make, that an NFL player, NFL corner should make. So that was concerning, and A.J. Bouye kind of had that problem as well where he would whiff on tackles or, get stiff-armed by Derrick Henry from the Titans, that famous, meme. So we want to try to avoid that next season and, beat the Titans. But, C.J. Henderson, he's got pretty decent size. He's 6 feet tall. He's 204 pounds. He's pretty fast, though. He ran a 4.39. So, that's fast. In his career at Florida, he had 66 solo tackles, 6 interceptions, and, 20 pass deflections. But when I watch, C.J. Henderson play, and in his highlight reel, he's a good coverage corner, and that's definitely what we need, and had a bunch of nice, turnovers and pass deflections. So, I think this was a good pick overall, in this draft. So let's go to our next pick in round number 1, pick number 20. It's edge rusher, defensive end / outside linebacker, Kaylavon Chasen from LSU. I'm kind of iffy on this pick. I don't know how I really feel about it because, he's had some injury trouble. I know he tore his ACL. I believe it was in 2018, and then he had like an ankle injury in 2019. So that's a concern. He doesn't have the longest arms either. So, when you're trying to get separation from the offensive tackles and kind of, get off of, or get around them and make the play, that could be difficult at times. But, he seems like he's a great athlete. I watched his highlights. There's a lot of positives. He really pursues the ball very well. He doesn't give up on plays. He's very aggressive. He's got a really nice bull rush for a defensive end, of his size. And that's what we need, need someone that has got a nice bull rush that can overpower, the tackles and, get separation, good rip move. When I look at his stats, he's got 46 solo tackles, 19 tackles for a loss and 9.5 sacks. Pretty decent stats. I believe he, declared for the NFL draft pretty early. So, he probably would have had better stats. He's got good size too. 6'1", he's 6'4", 249 pounds. So it's a big guy and looked like he did pretty well against the run. I think we could all assume this is going to be Ngakwe's replacement. If he plays this season, we just don't know how that's going to work out. I'm assuming he's going to play, out, this season and then probably, won't be here for the 2021 season. So I predict that K'Lavon Chaisson will likely be Yannick Ngakwe's replacement. And I think that's a smart move. And I think he'll probably play pretty well alongside, Josh Allen. And, looks like, in the highlights that I saw, K'Lavon Chaisson had really good outside contain as well. So this should be pretty exciting. But I think, time will tell. I think we're pretty solid at defensive end in terms of depth. So I don't know, maybe K'Lavon Chaisson ends up being a rotational player. We have DeJuan Smoot as well. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how this plays out, this season. So, all right. So we go to round number 2, pick number 42, wide receiver, Laviska Shenault from Colorado. I kind of said this in the previous episode. I really had wished that we had gone for Jalen Hurts at quarterback. We didn't. We ended up going for the wide receiver position. And I feel like, this does give us some depth, at the wide receiver position because we will have, D.D. Westbrook being an unrestricted free agent after this season. So I feel like Laviska Shenault will, possibly be his replacement. And he really fits, D.D. Westbrook's kind of build. He's 6'1", 227 pounds, runs a 4.58 40-yard dash, so he's got a lot of speed. And I really liked this guy, watching his highlight reel. He just has a lot of great speed. He runs really nice routes. He gets separation, can break tackles, and, just had caught a lot of really nice passes. He's a playmaker, and that's really what we need. We need to give Gardner Minshew as many weapons as we can for this, upcoming season.
Just heart and balls, man, heart and balls.
So I do think that this was a decent pick. I look at his stats. He's got 149 receptions, 1,943 yards and 10 touchdowns. So pretty nice stats. Some of the cons about Laviska Shenault, though, is that, he's had injury trouble. I believe he had, core muscle surgery, before the draft. So it's a concern. We could have another, Marquise Lee situation, and that's never good. So, I guess time will tell. Hopefully he stays durable. But, yeah, I think this guy could be a really, really nice playmaker for the Jags. So we go to our next pick, and that's in round number 3, pick number 73. Defensive tackle Devon Hamilton, Ohio State. I guess I kind of didn't really understand this pick. I feel like a lot of depth at defensive tackle with Taven Bryan, who I know hasn't played traditionally or historically very well, since we picked him up from Florida. But, we have Dontavius Russell, who didn't play much either last season. And then we have our free agent pickups like Al Woods, Rodney Gunter, who can kind of play end/defensive tackle, and then Al Woods. So, I know those guys are, all signed to pretty much 1-year deals, but I felt like we were pretty solid at the defensive tackle position, but, apparently Dave Caldwell thought otherwise. So, I think this is a good pick, though. I mean, I watched a lot of the highlight reel for Devon Hamilton, and, he's a big guy, 6'4", 320, 40-yard dash is, I believe it was like a 5.14, so not the fastest 40, but, honestly, defensive tackles in the NFL, I mean, you have to be quick, so I don't think the 40 is kind of the all-telling, whether this guy's going to be a good player or not. A lot of times, defensive tackles just need to take on double teams, and, prevent the guards and tackles from getting on to the next level, getting blocks on our linebackers, etc. So I don't think the 40-yard dash is an issue necessarily, but I think he does have great size. I watched his highlight reel. He's got nice rip moves. He could get penetration upfield, and I feel like that's what we really need. He'll likely be a rotational player, though. I think this season, with our free agent acquisitions, I feel like we're pretty solid there with Al Woods at the nose tackle position, and then having Avery Jones and Rodney Gunter and all those guys, and Tavid Bryan as well. So, but when you look at his college stats, pretty impressive. 41 solo tackles, 20 tackles for a loss. So, not bad. And, I feel like he'll definitely be able to stop the run or help us, stop the run, because that was a, huge issue for us last season. So, yeah, I think this was a good pick. Just a little surprised by it. So we go into the 4th round here, the 116th pick, offensive tackle, Ben Bartch from St. John's. And this is kind of an interesting pick, honestly. This guy got a lot of attention in the NFL draft because of like this protein/fat shake that he made, and he was showing how he made it.
Idiot!
I thought it was a little ridiculous, honestly. But I have to give this guy some credit, because he was a tight end, and then they converted him to a left tackle. So that's pretty hard to do. He put on a lot of weight, and bulked up. And I think this is an okay pick. I don't think this guy's going to really be an impact player for the Jaguars. I think he'll likely be a backup. You look at him too. He's 6'6", 309 pounds. So that's pretty undersized for a left tackle in the NFL. So that's a concern. I mean, and I think there's the inexperience at the position as well. But pretty impressive that he got drafted by an NFL team. You got to give him credit for that where it's due, because that's pretty impressive to be a tight end and then switch to tackle. But I looked at some of his film, and I think he does have very, very good feet. He can move. He's got good footwork, and decent pass blocker. But on the run, I feel like he kind of can get pushed around or put his head down and miss some blocks. So I thought that was a concern. And, I think it can get better with coaching, but I think he'll likely be a backup or a rotational player. All right, so we go to our next draft pick in round 4, 137th pick, cornerback Josiah Scott from Michigan State. And I like this pick. I like it a lot because we needed a corner that could tackle well, and this guy can tackle really well. He's a really good open field tackler. He forces turnovers, and we need a guy flying around that can make plays, can stop the opposing offense on 3rd and short, on those key plays where we need to stop. And that's really where our defense was struggling last season. And I think, Josiah Scott will fill that void. The issue is, he's 5'9", 185 pounds, so he's a little undersized for a corner. And I think that's going to be an issue, but, the guy really plays his heart out. I was very impressed. I watched his film, and I just really liked how this guy flew around. He hit people, even when he was undersized. The matchup was not in his favor. He's flying around, hitting people. Was forcing turnovers, stripping the ball out, and getting fumbles, and had a fair amount of interceptions as well. So I'm really excited about this guy. I think he could be an impact player for Jacksonville. He plays with a lot of heart, and he's really fast too. I mean, his 40-yard was a 4.42, so that's pretty impressive. You look at his stats: 64 solo tackles, 6 interceptions, 22 pass deflections, and that's what I saw on the film. It was just great. And this guy's a baller, and a great tackler, like I said, and that's what we need. So we go to our next pick in the 4th round, 140th pick, linebacker Shaquille Quarterman from Miami. I really like this pick, and I almost want to say it's one of the best picks in the draft that Jacksonville made. And I'll tell you why, because, we needed a lot of depth at the middle linebacker position. With, the issues with Telvin Smith, and, we did get Joe Schobert from, Cleveland. So I guess the jury's kind of out on him still, because, we haven't seen him play for Jacksonville, but I think getting Shaquille Quarterman, on a rookie contract in Jacksonville, it's a great move because we needed a lot of depth at the middle linebacker position, and this guy is definitely a great player. He's got great size. He's 6 feet, 234 pounds, ran a nice 4.74, and he just attacks the ball. He takes great angles when you watch the film. I mean, he takes great angles. He could shed blocks, get in there and make the tackle and make the stop. Really going to help the Jacksonville Jaguars run defense so much this season. And I can't say, much more. It's really positive on Shaquille Quarterman here. You look at his stats: 182 solo tackles, 12 sacks, and 5 fumble recoveries. So, he can force turnovers as well. And that's how you win games. I mean, and that was a big part of our 2017 defense. We were Saxonville, we forced turnovers, and that's how we won games. And we definitely need that. So I'm super excited about Shaquille Quarterman. Cons about him, or kind of issues that I saw. I didn't see any. So feel free to point them out in the comments section. But I didn't see any, and I just really like this guy, and I'm really excited about him. So we go into round 5, 157th pick, strong safety Daniel Thomas from Auburn. I like this guy too, and I'll tell you why. He really reminds me of Donovan Darius from like the early, mid-90s to 2000s, Jags. This guy just crushes people. I mean, he's a hard hitter. He's 5'10", 215 pounds. So, he's a decently sized, safety, pretty fast, ran a 4.5, 140, but man, this guy brings the wood. I mean, he hits hard, and you just see it in the film, and it's awesome. And, I love to see that. We need guys flying around on our defense, making huge tackles and big hits, and, being that intimidating, Saxonville defense. And so that's what I pretty much saw from his film work. And you know what? I like this guy a lot. I think he's going to be an impact player. He'll likely be, rotational player. We might see him on special teams, but I think you'll see him in there, kind of subbing in for Ronnie Harrison and Jared Wilson. But you look at his stats: 124 solo tackles, 5 interceptions, and 8 pass deflections. So, yeah, I'm excited, man, because if he plays like Donovan Darius, it could be really exciting to watch this defense. So we go into round 5 again, pick 165, a wide receiver, Colin Johnson from Texas. So, I'm kind of like, I don't know, this pick was a little underwhelming for me. The really nice part about Colin Johnson is his size. He's 6'6", 222 pounds. So he's got that size where, a wide receiver can overpower the defensive back, get separation, make those nice, diving catches, or kind of jump over the defensive back to make those, crazy catches. And, that's something that we need, because I feel like, our wide receiving core is a little undersized. So we really need that wide receiver that can overpower defensive backs. I think he's really going to be a 4th or 5th, wide receiver, rotational guy, kind of like Keelan Cole. Some issues with Colin Johnson. He's injury prone. He didn't run the combine, didn't run the 40, and he had a hip flexor injury. So I think he'll be a backup, or like I said, a rotational player, but had some nice highlights. I mean, you look at his highlight reel and look at his stats. I mean, he had 188 receptions, 2,624 yards receiving, and 15 touchdowns, during his tenure at Texas. So pretty awesome. Could be an impact player if he could stay healthy. And like I said, we need to give Gardner Minshew as many weapons as possible.
Just heart and balls, man. Heart and balls.
Because, he needs to make plays. But yeah, he could be an exciting player. Could be a sleeper wide receiver. So then we go to round number 6, pick 189. We go with quarterback Jake Luton from Oregon State. This was a very interesting draft pick. Probably one of the more interesting draft picks by the Jags, because I feel like this guy could be a sleeper quarterback. I mean, he kind of reminds me of Gardner Minshew, and, I'm not saying completely like Gardner Minshew, because I feel like Gardner Minshew is a lot more mobile than Jake Luton, but I feel like this guy with coaching could be a sleeper quarterback. I think he'll be a backup, and probably for a little bit, but who knows, right? Quarterbacks get injured, and, he may have to step in when called upon, but, he's 6'6", 224 pounds. He's got great size, that's like the ideal quarterback size in terms of height. You want a guy usually between 6'5" and 6'6". That's pretty great. The issue with Jake Luton, though, is I feel like he's not the most mobile quarterback. He can, tuck and run when he needs to, but he's not a Gardner Minshew. He's not going to be able to roll out of the pocket and scramble for 10 yards and get the first down. But he is a guy, I feel like he's got a quick release, pretty similar to Gardner Minshew. He's got zip. He can get rid of the ball. And that's what you need in the NFL, because, when you're dealing with blitzes and, trying to get those quick first downs, or those quick, screen passes to get the first down, that's necessary. I'd say his only issue is his accuracy. He has a completion percentage of about 62.1%. That's not very good. I'd like to see better, but, I feel like that also comes with coaching. And I feel like, Jake Luton could get coached up and, improve that. You look at his stats, he's got 42 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, but, he has about 5,227 yards passing. So I feel like he can improve. I think he'll be a backup. He'll probably be, I don't know, I see him being maybe number 3. I don't know what will happen with Josh Dobbs, or whether we keep him, but could be interesting to see what happens. But could be a sleeper quarterback like Gardner Minshew too. You never know. And then we go to our next pick in round number 6, 206th pick, tight end Tyler Davis from Georgia Tech. I don't have much to say about this guy. Not much film on him. I know he was a quarterback and wide receiver, kind of converted to tight end. But he's a big guy, 6'4", 250 pounds. You'll likely see him on probably special teams, or goal line, 2 tight end situations where we're running the ball, kind of short yardage plays. stats: 17 receptions, 148 yards. So I think he played tight end like his senior year. And he got drafted, and that's great. And I think he'll probably be a special teams guy. I think we're pretty deep in the tight end position, with Tyler Eifert and James O'Shaughnessy, and then Seth Duvall. So it'll be interesting what happens. Maybe he's a special teams guy. And then we finish off in round number 7, 223rd pick with cornerback Chris Claybrooks from Memphis. Again, not too much to say about this guy. I think he's going to be a special teams, player. 43 solo tackles, 2 interceptions, 3 pass deflections. I think he'll be a backup, probably special teams, like I said. But not much film on Chris Claybrooks. But that's it pretty much, for the Jacksonville Jaguars NFL, 2020 draft class. We think we did okay, C+ at best. Definitely fills some gaps, on defense, which is good. But I'd like to see, maybe more improvements, next draft. Maybe we get a quarterback, or maybe we go for offensive tackle. But who knows? We'll see what's happened. We'll see what happens. Got a pretty hard schedule, coming up this season. So and I'll talk more about that in a future episode. But let me know how you feel about the draft class. Leave me a comment on the YouTube video or podcast episode. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like. Subscribe to the channel. If you're bored, come by my Twitter feed at Jaguar Podcast. Let's talk Jaguars. Tweet me, or if you're bored and trying to stay sane, it's always good. Stop by my feed. This is a podcast, so you can pretty much get this podcast wherever you can get podcasts. So stop by Apple Podcasts, leave me a review or some feedback. Always helps me when I put together these episodes. Stay safe, don't go crazy. Stay away from the coronavirus. Wash your hands. Go Jags, and I'll see you next time.
Let me get that. JYD coming up with the big sack. Quarterbacks beware, we on the prowl. Game day night, you could hear it in our growl. Intimidation on to keep their hearts racing. Eating other teams live on TV front of the nation. Spectacular defensive scheme.
This episode is available on the Jaguar Podcast YouTube channel. So if you stop by, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like. Also, these episodes are available on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and other major podcast distributors as well. So if you don't mind, please leave me a review and some feedback. I'd really appreciate that. If you'd like to connect with me on social media, my Twitter handle is @JagwarPodcast. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. This is Andrew signing off. Cheers.